As you know, Netflix has been getting rave reviews from its animated video game adaptations, and given the kind of work Adi Shankar has done for the Castlevania franchise, Devil May Cry will certainly take some time to match up. Still, the series won us over by the end, as the glimmers of originality and unexpected depth in the series were definitely a pleasant surprise. But when it comes to the anime genre and contemporary adult animation, it just isn't enough to be visually dynamic and have incredible fight scenes. That's pretty much a baseline requirement, and let's just say Devil May Cry quickly achieves this baseline with the utmost finesse. It's also easy to like the show's classic protagonist, Dante, who's powerful, witty, and a little immature, making him all the more attractive yet approachable. This franchise has been the talk of the town amongst hardcore fans, especially for its stylish combat and intricate lore, so naturally, all of us were excited to see Netflix's take on our favorite DMC characters. But with the series being a fresh take on the lore of Devil May Cry, a particular character has finally gotten the chance to steal the spotlight and reinvent herself, and this character is none other than Lady or Lieutenant Mary Arkham. After being ignored by the previous anime adaptation and by the most recent games, Netflix has finally given her the chance to shine by placing her at the center of the show. Initially introduced as Dante's opponent, Mary soon becomes a familiar archetypal character, but if you've watched the show, you know that the pair develops some depth throughout the episodes. While most of you know about Mary's journey from a helpless orphan to a lieutenant in the Netflix series, let's take a gander at her lore in the DMC games and figure out where she stands at the end of the newly released anime's first season. Who is Lady in the Devil May Cry games, and what is she like? So, within the DMC games, Lady is a human devil hunter who first showed up in Devil May Cry 3, Dante's Awakening, as both a boss fight and a supporting character. She's the daughter of Arkham and originally set out to hunt him down, which is how she crossed paths with Dante. She later returns as a playable and supporting character in Devil May Cry 4 Special Edition, and once again appears as a key ally in Devil May Cry 5. Interestingly, Lady's real name is Mary, just like the Virgin Mary from Christian tradition. Her name is a nod to the very famed Dante Alighieri's Divine Comedy, and in this poem, it is Mary who sends Saint Lucia and Beatrice to help Dante on his journey through hell. That connection makes Lady's chosen name pretty symbolic too. By calling herself Lady, she may be nodding to one of the Virgin Mary's titles, Madonna, which literally means lady in Italian. With that being said, just like we see in the Netflix anime, the DMC games also portray Lady as a fierce woman with a no-nonsense attitude who's more than capable of keeping up with Dante. She's even been described as a psychotic devil-hunting female, which only goes to show her intense, relentless frame of mind in battle. Despite her tough exterior, there's much more to Lady than just grit. After Arkham fakes his death and she finally kills him near the end of Devil May Cry 3, Lady breaks down in tears, which finally reveals a more vulnerable, emotional side. Her iconic line where she says that it's true, you would never recover from that, really showcases the knee-deep trauma she carries and possibly even gives us a hint of the regret she felt over having to kill her own father. In the beginning, Lady saw all demons, including half-demons, as enemies and was always determined to wipe them out. What drove her more than anything wasn't just skill or strength, but her unwavering belief that she was doing the right thing. That particular conviction was actually her greatest weapon, and this mindset led Lady to develop a kind of moral prejudice against demons. She saw them as heartless monsters, incapable of understanding concepts like love or family. That belief may be why she initially rejected the Legend of Sparta, as she simply couldn't bring herself to accept that a demon could be humanity's savior or have even played a role in protecting the world. But over time, especially through her encounters with Dante, her perspective began to shift. She eventually comes to realize that Sparta was real, and more importantly, the line between humans and demons is really not so clear-cut, as both are equally capable of great good and great evil. What does Lady look like in all the DMC games? Well, we think Netflix did a banger job adapting her appearance in the show because in the source material, or the DMC games, Lady has chin-length dark hair that frames both sides of her face with a fringe that falls just to her eyebrows. She's also got several scars across her body, with the most noticeable one running across her nose. One of her signature features is the necklace she always wears, which is just a simple piece with a striking red gem. Now, in the games, it was actually Lady's father who had heterochromia, and just like him, this condition gave her two different colored eyes, one red and the other a bluish green. She also appears to be a bit younger than Dante. When we first meet her in DMC 3, she was wearing a schoolgirl-style outfit, a short white blouse that exposed her midriff with sleeves that went just past her elbows. Her skirt was also made from protective plating, giving it a more tactical edge, and she wore dark black or purple shorts underneath. She also wore a utility belt around her waist, and it held her spare gun magazines, and was also connected to a harness for her rocket launcher, Kalina Ann. She was also armed to the teeth, always carrying a pistol on the front of her skirt, a Scorpion machine gun with a bayonet on her back, a lever-action bow gun strapped to her left thigh, and another pistol secured to her right boot. To round out the look, Lady wore dark brown gloves, black socks, and tall orange-brown boots that went up to her knees. By the time Devil May Cry 4 rolls around, Lady had clearly matured both in appearance and demeanor. Her figure had developed and her hair was now longer, though it kept the same general style framing her face, and it now reached down to her collarbone. Her outfit in the game is a bit more daring, as she wore a fitted white jacket over what looked like a harness with no shirt underneath, thus leaving her cleavage and midriff exposed. She paired that with white short shorts, red gloves, and her usual confident attitude. She also had magazine pouches on both hips for ammo, knee-high boots, and a pair of sleek sunglasses to top it all off. It was a really bold, combat-ready look that somehow complemented her sharp, no-nonsense personality. But in Devil May Cry 5, Lady sports a more rugged look. Her hair is cut into a choppy, short bob with a full fringe, just like her DMC 3 hairstyle. The prominent scar across her nose has mostly faded after healing over the years. When it comes to her outfit, Lady wears a cropped-off white leather jacket with a white long-sleeved blouse that shows off her midriff. The look is accessorized with gray and black rider goggles and a black buckled belt that connects to the jacket. She pairs this with black shorts and matching leg warmers that look a lot like leggings, thus giving her a flexible, ready-for-action appearance. In this game, Lady also brings back elements of her original DMC3 gear, including her tactical skirt and signature weapons. Her black boots and fingerless gloves complete the outfit, and she even adds a touch of flair with black and gray nail polish. I think this one's a practical look, and it's very much in line with who Lady has become. Eventually, after being rescued in DMC 5, Lady is temporarily given one of Nico's spare white mechanic jumpsuits to wear. Since it's a bit too big for her, the fit is loose and baggy, so she rolls up the sleeves to just below her elbows and the pant legs to just above her ankles for a more practical feel. She wore the jumpsuit zipped up to only just below her chest, flipping the top down into a casual collar. While the style was revealing, the lack of support under the oversized outfit didn't really put much emphasis on her cleavage. She paired the jumpsuit up with a set of black work shoes to complete the look. Later, she was seen wearing a loose button-up shirt to cover up before eventually changing back into her usual outfit for the rest of the game. Lady's entire lore in the Devil May Cry gaming series. Okay, so let's start right from the beginning. When she was just a baby, Lady was named Mary by her father, Arkham. Now, Arkham had inherited the blood of the legendary priestess who was killed by Sparta to seal the Temen Negru. However, at some point, Lady's father became obsessed with the legend and the possibility of obtaining Sparta's power and slew Kalina Ann, his wife, and Lady's mother in the process. At this point, Lady disowned him and renounced her name before committing her whole life to the path of being a devil hunter. Now, let's discuss Lady's adventures throughout the entire DMC series, starting with her first appearance in Devil May Cry 3. In this game, we see that in her quest for revenge, Lady starts to climb the Temen Negru in pursuit of Arkham, and that's how she eventually meets Dante for the first time, just after his battle with Cerberus. She then fires a missile from Kalina Ann at Dante, who dodges the missile and rides it around the chamber like a flying surfboard. But after the missile blows a hole in the wall, Mary uses the new entrance to continue up the tower. She fights her way up through the tower, taking a different path than Dante, and as she approaches the top, she's finally confronted by Arkham, who calmly asks why she was pointing a gun at her own father. In response, Lady claimed that the only family she had was her mother and attempted to shoot him, but Arkham dodged her bullets and flipped her off the other side of the tower. Even then, she kept firing at him with her handguns as she fell, and one bullet grazed his cheek. Meanwhile, in devilishly proper timing, Dante stood below and caught her by the ankle. When Lady asks him to let her go, Dante jokes that it would be a waste if she were to end up as just a pretty stain. As a result, she shoots Dante in the forehead, kind of deservedly, and he drops her. Then, by jamming the blade of the Kalina Ann into the wall of the tower, she manages to stop her fall only a short distance away. When Dante peers over the edge to express his outrage at being shot, she shoots at him again. This time Dante catches the bullet in his teeth and leaves her be. This whole exchange makes her suspicious that Dante might be a demon. Still, without a name, Lady presses on and doesn't see Dante again until Leviathan nearly falls on her. Without even being sure what to do with it, she draws her gun as the beast's eye begins to move. But next thing she knows, in a fountain of blood, Dante bursts forth from the eye and starts to walk away, following a sign left by Jester, but this time she stops him. Before they can have a proper conversation, the two are attacked by demons who they had to fight off by standing back to back. It was during this battle that Dante asked her what her name was, to which Mary responded by saying she didn't have one and that he could call her whatever he liked. So Dante, in a rather dismissive manner, replied, "Whatever, lady," before leaping away and leaving the rest of the demons for her to deal with. Later, they meet again when Dante finds the seemingly dead body of Arkham. Mary arrives at the scene and, seeing the body of her despised father, she asks if Dante was responsible. When Dante mockingly implies that he probably did it, Mary flies into a rage and shoots him, even though he dodges or counters every shot. While venting her anger on Dante, she explains Arkham's sins and that he was her father. Lady also laments about Arkham's death being her responsibility since they were family, but ultimately sends Dante on his way. Sometime after Dante's departure, Arkham awakes, though he was still on the verge of death. While on his final breath, he tells Mary that it was a demon who tricked him into killing his wife and pins the blame on Virgil. After saying this, he dies, leaving Mary to cry over him and vow to avenge his death by stopping Virgil. Mary then catches up to Dante as he was fighting Virgil and joins the clash. Soon after, Jester stops the battle and reveals that he is, in fact, the alter ego of Arkham. Arkham also reveals that he lured Dante, Virgil, and Mary into that chamber, stating that all of them are the key to his plan to unlock the path to Demon World. In Mary's case, she's the descendant of a human priestess who sparred a sacrifice to seal the Temen Negru. Jester then mocks the brothers, saying they're weak, and after slamming Mary's face into the floor, he stabs her thigh with the Kalina Ann in order to draw her blood and break the seal. Even though Mary, Virgil, and Dante together try to put an end to Arkham, they fail, as they were pretty knocked about from having to fight with one another before. So, Jester easily dispatches them and knocks them off the rising platform on which they were standing. Mary nearly falls again as the floor beneath her and the Sons of Sparta collapses, but Dante catches her just in time. She insists that it was her job to stop Arkham since he was her father. Claiming that a demon like him wouldn't understand, she uses the grappling hook on the Kalina Ann to ascend to the top of the tower. However, Dante thought that she wouldn't be able to outmatch Arkham and followed her by a different route before finally catching up to Mary at the Divine Library. Again, when Dante went to the top of the tower to teleport to the demon world, Mary aimed her gun at him in order to stop him because, according to her, it was her responsibility to stop Arkham and Dante shouldn't interfere with that. When Dante insisted that it was his responsibility too and demanded Mary get out of his way, she refused and so they began to fight. After her defeat, Dante mentioned how this whole mess started with his father and how he should sort it out. Finally, Mary acquiesces and entrusts Dante after understanding that Dante was a half-demon and what he was really fighting for. She then gives him Kalina Ann in exchange for his name. Sometime later, Mary is shown catching a glimpse of Virgil going to the top of the tower. Eventually, after Arkham acquired Sparta's power and was subsequently defeated at the hands of Dante and Virgil, Arkham fell back to the human world in a weakened and bloody condition. Soon, Mary finds him and wastes no time pointing her gun at him, but Arkham pleads his innocence and begs for his life. Instead of paying heed to her father, Mary renounces her name and takes up the one Dante gave her. As Lady, she shoots her father 4 times, killing him for good, and then proceeds to cry beside his body. Lady again reappears at the end of the game beside Dante and talks to him about the aftermath. This is where she coins the famous phrase, "Devil may cry," after seeing Dante shedding tears for his brother. Afterwards, the demons still left in the human world appear and attack both of them, and so we get the final treat of witnessing Lady fight them beside Dante. Then, the scene shifts to Lady's commentary about the future, the demons left in the human world, and about Dante's newly opened shop. It's through her interactions with Dante that Lady realized how demons were capable of both good and evil, just as humans were. Devil May Cry, the animated series. Now, this one is an honorable mention because in the Devil May Cry anime, it was revealed that after the events of Devil May Cry 3 and Devil May Cry, Lady started working as a solo devil hunter after parting ways with Dante somewhere down their professional line of work. She nevertheless remained in contact with him to offer him jobs that may seem to be out of her league or to hassle him for the money he owed her. But Lady was unaware of Dante's other partner, Trish from Devil May Cry, until they inadvertently met one another in one of her gigs where a priest claimed the blonde woman was controlling the demons terrorizing the town he was in. After realizing that she was tricked and is dealing with the demonic priest, Lady and Trish worked together and formed a near instantaneous camaraderie. Unfortunately for Dante, this meant that the two's penchant for buying expensive clothing inadvertently left him with the bill as a means to staunch his debts for them both. But despite Lady often being harsh or mean towards Dante, it wasn't like she didn't care for him and always trusted him when it came to doing the right thing in their line of work. Lady also respected him enough even after acknowledging his flaws, which was evident as to her remarks about him when Trish inquired about her true feelings towards Dante. Meanwhile, the shrewd but skilled half-demon respected Lady just as much and both understood what their jobs really demanded them to be, even in times of conflict. One such example was during the Abigail incident where Lady and Trish agreed to handle the lesser demons and ensure civilian safety while Dante hunted Sid, entrusting Dante with the main threat despite the seemingly overwhelming odds. Overall, in this anime, Lady's relationship with Dante is both sweet and ironic, with her seemingly accepting his demonic heritage to the fullest, to the point where she casually shoots him as a means to poke fun at him. She also makes sure to frequent Devil May Cry in order to check up on him or tax him for the debt he owes her, and also ensure that his business still runs by helping him with the bills or giving him jobs. Devil May Cry 4. In this game, Lady was the one responsible for getting Dante and Trish involved in the events in Fortuna by assigning them there. She's also the one who tells Dante and Trish about the Order of the Sword, which is a small congregation that gathers in the city of Fortuna. Apparently, lately, they've started collecting devil arms and have even butted in on some of her jobs. She was the first to suspect that the Order may have something more to them than what meets the eye. Later, when Trish takes Sparta and leaves, Lady follows shortly. Though she's present during the Fortuna incident, Lady's whereabouts remained unknown throughout the game, and she was probably helping Trish evacuate civilians out of Fortuna. After Sanctus and the Savior are defeated, Trish, Lady, and Dante watch Nero and Kyrie have a romantic moment from afar. As Trish and Dante start leaving, Lady mentions how they're about to miss the best part. Dante then questions her about his pay for this job, to which Lady assures him he'll get his money. Later on, Lady comes back to Dante's shop to pay for his services, giving him a small money roll. When Trish complains about the small payment, Lady reasons that the events that happened there escalated because of Trish's actions. Their bickering ends with Dante accepting the pay for what it is. In the end, when they receive a call from a customer with a password, Lady forcibly tags along despite Dante telling her she wouldn't be getting paid, and so the trio move to help once again. Devil May Cry 5. At the start of the chaos involving Urizen in Devil May Cry 5, Lady gets called in by Morrison and joins Dante and Trish for the mission. When V decides to leave the demon slaying to them, Lady raises an eyebrow and jokes, clearly amused and a little curious about who this mysterious new guy is. Following this, Lady and Trish actually make it to Urizen's throne room before Dante does, but they quickly realize just how outmatched they are. It's not long before Urizen's power overwhelms them, and by the time Dante arrives, both women are already down. Dante, seeing the situation, makes a pointed remark about how Lady and Trish are two of the most badass women in the world before stepping up to fight Urizen himself. Unfortunately, he doesn't fare much better. After defeating Dante, Urizen captures both Lady and Trish after boasting about how they'll be used to increase his strength. Then, a month later, we see that Lady is still trapped as her body is possessed and twisted into the demon Artemis. Nero eventually finds her deep in Redgrave City while battling his way through the demon horde. After defeating Artemis, Nero rescues Lady, who was unconscious and unaware of what happened. Nico recognizes her immediately, having worked with a lady in the past to maintain her weapons, especially the original Kalina Ann, which had been lost during her defeat by Urizen. As Nero carries the still-naked Lady back to Nico's van, Nico can't help but tease him, cracking jokes about him cradling a naked woman in his arms. Later, when Lady comes to her senses, she remembers that Trish was also captured alongside her, but she had no recollection of Dante's fate. Seeing her, V awkwardly comments that he was glad to see her look so well, to which Lady replies in kind, despite being suspicious about whether V was trustworthy. Nero replies that he is, or at least might be useful, and leaves, saying she should get some rest after the whole Artemis ordeal. Later, Nico wakes Lady up to ask her for help in clearing the rubble so the van can make it through. Following this, Lady is seen along with Nico and Nero meeting up with Dante, V, and Trish in the lower levels of Kliphoff after Dante's encounter with Urizen. She takes the driver's seat, navigating the van through the infernal tree and almost runs Nero over in the process. Eventually, when Kliphoff started going haywire, Lady was understandably confused, especially when Dante suddenly showed up and dropped the bombshell that Virgil was back. Then, Nico, ever the unapologetic gunsmith, ended up lending Dante the Kalina Ann 2, a souped-up version of the rocket launcher she originally designed for Lady to replace the one she lost. Although Lady protests, she lets it slide and even manages to square things up with Nico and pay for it shortly after being freed from Artemis. Then, as Lady, Trish, and Nico make their getaway in the van, Nero catches up with them. He's clearly reeling from the revelation that Virgil, his missing father, is the one behind all the chaos, from Kliphoff to his missing arm. When Trish tries to talk him down, warning him about the emotional weight of killing one's own father, Lady backs her up by speaking from experience on how it's something you never truly recover from. Still, Nero could not be swayed as he leaps out of the van, determined to confront Virgil on his own. Later, after the credits roll, we get a quieter, more humorous moment as Lady and Trish are seen lounging in Dante's office, sharing pizza and casually wondering when he was going to come back. Lady jokes about settling down and taking over the place, while Trish quickly objects, claiming she should be the one to keep it. Then Morrison walks in with the really shocking news that Dante had left the deed to the office in his name, saying the two crazy bitches would just wreck it. That, of course, sparks more playful finger-pointing between Lady and Trish as they try to figure out if Dante's ever really planning to return. As the power cuts out yet again, the two reluctantly follow Morrison out the door as another job is already waiting for them.
We're not jarheads. We're demon hunters.
Lady Mary Arkham's origin story in Netflix's Devil May Cry series. Lieutenant Mary Ann Arkham, or Lady as Dante likes to call her, is introduced as a major character in the Netflix version of Devil May Cry. We first see her as a fierce, fair-skinned woman with short black hair and heterochromia. Just like her mother, she too has a red left eye and a green right eye. Lady initially joined Darkcom, or Dark Realm Command, as one of the operatives, and gradually became the lieutenant of the team, working directly under the command of Vice President of the United States, William Baines. Throughout the first season, we see her as an assertive, taciturn warrior with a laser focus on always completing her mission. While she believes in Baines despite his agenda, she still has many doubts about how he goes about his plan. But since childhood, she's had a deep-seated hatred for demons and has always seen them as purely destructive, without any empathy towards concepts like love or family. Even though she's not oblivious to Sparta's contribution towards siding with humanity and closing the wall that bounded the human realm with Makai, she definitely seemed to have some reservations about him because he was a demon. While she was initially quick to pull the trigger, Lady was actually the only one willing to hear out the pleas of fleeing demon refugees after seeing that a human was leading them out of a portal. But years later, when a demon refugee family saved her and then she heard of the predicament that they were suffering from in Makai, she started seeing them less as evil monsters and more as people in dire need. To this end, she tried not to only vouch for saving them, but even bargained with Plasma to help them. Her relationship with Dante also improves over the course of Season 1, initially seeing him as a demonic troublemaker to trusting him despite his attitude. Now, coming to how and why Mary became such a demon-hating horror. So, Mary is the daughter of John Arkham and Kalina Ann. As a child, she loved action movies and often imagined herself as a hero that fights against evil or injustice. One day, Mary was returning back home with her parents after seeing a movie together. While walking down the subway, the family were discussing the movie, and that's when Mary's mother noticed that a shady-looking man was following them. Although they started running when the man transformed into a demon, Mary went back with her toy gun to confront the beast. Seeing her child in danger, Kalina fled to rescue Mary while her father simply froze in fear and watched the scene unfold. Luckily, the demon came in the way of a passing train which smashed him to a pulp, saving the Arkham family. Following this incident, Mary's father made many failed attempts to report this to the police, but they all laughed it off and dismissed his theories about demons or hell. John started feeling unsafe in his own home, and because of his need to protect his family, he became obsessed with studying and researching more about demons. Things got so bad that he isolated himself from his wife and daughter in the process, even though Kalina would constantly try to convince him to let it go. Occasionally, Mary would look through the peephole into John's study, but would be too scared to open the door and confront him. One day, Mary saw that the door to her dad's study was open, and she went inside to see her parents fighting. Her mother was trying to prevent her father from injecting something into his body, and in that struggle, Kalina fell, only to see Mary. When she turned to comfort her daughter, John took the opportunity to inject himself with demon blood, which immediately transformed him into a mindless demon. In his demon form, John killed his wife when she tried to save Mary and began eating her corpse as his daughter watched. Although Mary attempted to fight back, she was quickly overpowered and their scuffle accidentally started a fire, which quickly spread to the entire house. As Mary fled the building, her father seemingly died in the flames, and so she walked away from her house while the firemen took care of it. Eventually, when she grew up as a young adult, Mary was approached and recruited by Dark Realm Command. There, she quickly worked her way up to a lieutenant and led her group of officers to different missions where they gunned down demons wreaking havoc on Earth. One day, her group eventually began investigating a group of demons and tracked them down to an abandoned warehouse where they killed the demons present. But before they left, a strange portal opened up and a man, followed by multiple humanoid demons, came out of it. In response, when the entire Darkcom team trained their guns on the group, the man leading them tried to explain the situation. He tried telling Mary that these were refugees looking for help, but before he could finish, a larger demon burst from the portal and began attacking the refugee demons, causing them to flee. This in turn led to the Darkcom agents opening fire on everyone and killing all the demons present, including the kids and their families. Before leaving the building, Mary threw her utility belt full of bombs and ran away before the building collapsed. Now, she thought this man who was leading the demon refugees had seemingly died in the crossfire, but he actually survived. He woke up to see himself lying in a bed of corpses of the families he was trying to save. This whole thing scarred him both mentally and physically, and eventually he went insane. From then on, he began investigating Darkcom and vowed to destroy everything the agency stood for. He then created an artificial heart to pump demon blood through his body in order to greatly enhance his physical capabilities. Finally, he created a rabbit-themed mask after his favorite Alice in Wonderland character and proceeded to sew it directly to his head. That's how the White Rabbit became a villain hell-bent on unleashing the entirety of demonkind on Earth. His only mission was to rip down the wall that Sparta had built to save mankind, and to achieve that, he was willing to do anything and everything. Now, Vice President Baines and Darkcom theorized that the Rabbit must be looking for a way to reopen the interdimensional rift between Makai and Earth. This brings them to Dante, a peculiar demon hunter who's on the rodent rogue's radar due to the family heirloom pendant around his neck. As a result, Baines puts a bounty on Dante amongst the demon hunters and sends out his own elite task force, helmed by Lieutenant Mary Arkham. Although Dante puts up a commendable fight, Mary's wit and lethal skills get the better of him. Consequently, he finds himself in the back of Darkcom's high-security truck where Mary keeps toying with him by blasting fire at him. Furthermore, after witnessing his startling strength and superhuman healing, the lieutenant concludes that the hunter must be part demon, much to his own surprise. Dante keeps calling her lady and mentions how it's impossible for him to be part demon as he literally hunts them for a living, but Mary refuses to buy any of that because, according to her, anyone with an ounce of demon blood in them didn't deserve to live. Meanwhile, with the help of a mole within Darkcom, Rabbit manages to catch up to the team, luring Dante into a trap by stealing his precious pendant. Simultaneously, he leads Mary and her team into his own dangerous lair, crawling with hell-blooded people and his own soldiers. While Dante is dealing with Rabbit and trying to save Vice President Baines and his subordinates up in the air, Mary loses her entire team to Rabbit's minions, who successfully overpower them and murder them one by one. However, Mary somehow makes it out alive, and much to her surprise, in the middle of Rabbit's warehouse and his lethal booby traps, she comes across refugee families who were brought into Earth from Makai for unforeseen exploitation. When one of the families saves her from Rabbit's demons, she finally realizes that maybe not all demons living in Makai are the same. And so, she orders the Darkcom team to rescue all of them safely and escort them to headquarters. But when she leaves, Vice President Baines takes back control and orders the team to execute every last McCain present in the rescue trucks. Meanwhile, Dante confronts his own fate as he discovers that he is indeed the son of Sparta and has the ability to turn into a full-fledged demon at will. Thus, as the hunter and lieutenant fall back into each other's orbit, they figure out that Rabbit needs the son of Sparta's blood as well as his amulet in order to destroy the interdimensional barrier. For the same reason, Mary attempts to prevent a confrontation between the two by locking up Dante, but the plan is ultimately rendered moot as when she goes to confront Rabbit, he paralyzes her by injecting her with poison. Luckily, Dante comes to her rescue just in time, and in the end, it all culminates in an epic battle wherein Rabbit momentarily gets a taste of victory after going through a power upgrade by munching on a demon and jacking himself up. At last, when he finally succeeds in unleashing hell on Earth, Rabbit makes the mistake of telling Dante that his twin brother Virgil was still alive, thus giving him the much-needed motivation to take down the artificial beast and close the portal by taking off the amulet from Sparta's sword, preventing a dark fate for humanity. But he couldn't have taken down Rabbit's ultimate beast form if it wasn't for Lieutenant Mary Arkham using her last anti-demon bullet to shoot straight at the White Rabbit's artificial heart, stopping the demon blood flowing into his veins. Consequently, on the heels of defeating Rabbit, Dante reveals his plans to venture into hell and save Virgil. He even extends an offer for a partnership between himself and Mary after having grown fond of the lieutenant. As we know, the soldier had a tough childhood which compelled her to grow hateful of demons whose existence indirectly ruined her family. As such, she ended up at Darkcom, fighting for their anti-demon cause with blind hate for the species. However, her recent experiences made her realize there was more to demons than she had previously seen. Furthermore, seeds of doubt have begun to be sowed in her conscience about Bane's morality, especially once she realized that her task force was just collateral fodder for the man. Still, Mary didn't really know how deep this immorality ran in the fabric of Darkcom. Even though she was capable of seeing the McCains as people who were worthy of empathy and a helping hand, she still believed in her own self-righteous cause to eliminate the evil she strongly believed inherently lurked in demons. For the same reason, she couldn't allow Dante, being the son of Sparta, to just walk around with perhaps the most damning weapon in existence. Her life has basically programmed her to trust Baines and his rule above all else, so her new tentative friendship with Dante doesn't really allow her to throw her entire life away. So she decides to take advantage of Dante's trust and incapacitates him from the back in order to deliver him to Darkcom. This decision is sure to bring a cruel reckoning for the lieutenant when she's confronted with the capacity for evil that humans themselves possess, something most perfectly embodied in Baines, who has literally opened the portal to hell and colonized it by murdering all McCains and putting the rest in jail. Meanwhile, after Mary takes Dante to Darkcom headquarters, they put the half-demon hunter in suspended animation and locked away the Force-Edge Sword of Sparta as well as the amulets. So now, what will Mary do after seeing what Darkcom and Baines are capable of? What do you guys think is going to happen in Season 2 of Devil May Cry? And what do you think is going to happen to Lady Mary Arkham? Let us know your thoughts and theories in the comment box down below. We're always looking for good ones. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Otherwise, thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.